A single game changed his life forever. James McGinnis collapsed on his high school football field back in 2014. He was given a less than 7% chance of survival, and he beat those odds, and he's here with us today. We share his incredible recovery from a traumatic brain injury. Good morning, I'm Alexis Del Cid. Welcome to All Things Brain Health. James McGinnis was a senior at Olathe East when he collapsed on the football field. Doctors diagnosed him with an acute subdural hematoma. It's a type of bleeding near your brain that can happen after a head injury. When he woke up, he had to relearn everything. We're talking about eating, walking, and talking using his hands. Now, not only is he recovering, but he's using the very hands he had to relearn to use to create incredible beauty. And we are so pleased to welcome James to our program today. James, thank you for being here. And your dad, Patrick. Patrick, thank you for being here. And we also have Dr. Brad Steinle. Dr. Steinle is a physical medicine and rehabilitation specialist here at the health system. Thank you for taking the time to be here, Dr. Steinle.
Thank you.
James, I want to start with you. What position did you play?
So I was outside linebacker and slot back for offense. My injury occurred while I was playing outside linebacker though. And
it happened during that game?
Yes.
It wasn't a delayed response to a previous hit that you had taken?
No.
What, if anything, do you remember from the game?
For me, really, it was all the pre-game, we're going up against our rivals, and we were all amped up, but then just fades to darkness where like the incident happened.
Right. So you remember leading up to the game, but not the hit.
Yeah.
Patrick, do you remember watching the hit and thinking, whoa, that looked nasty?
It was. That's the crazy thing, is it didn't look. I've seen that tackle 1,000 times. It wasn't something out of the ordinary. It was, he came in and like he was taught, he with his shoulder on the hip and his ear on the belly button, in front of the runner, and as he goes to wrap up, the guy was running forward, and it caused his head to kind of quickly whip to the side, and I think that whip caused a rotation of the brain within the skull in a way that tore some of the lining. And he got up from that play, and fortunately the next play went away from him, but he was trailing it, and then afterwards he turned to go back to the middle of the field, and the only telltale sign that happened right after the hit or the tackle he made and the next play was that he continued to adjust his face mask. And I believe what was going on is that, as the injury was occurring, that side of his skull was going numb, and it didn't feel like the helmet fit right. So he continued to adjust it even when he wasn't in on the second play. And then he went down and face down. The trainer was out there immediately and called the doctor in. And I think most people that night, thought it might have been heat exhaustion or whatever. But as you heard the ambulances coming, they realized it was more serious, and he hadn't moved. And so you just heard this hush come over the stadium.
Oh my gosh.
Everybody started praying.
And were you in the stands just
I was
watching,
on the side. Yeah, I was on the sideline taking pictures. I was probably 10 yards away from him, and so and I heard it. I didn't see him fall because I was looking at pictures from the previous play, and this was in between plays. And then I heard one of the players say, "That's James. It's down." And so when I heard that, I ran out there on the field, just to check, and he wasn't moving at all.
And Dr. Steinle, what we heard Patrick say, you're thinking that James might have felt some sort of numbing on the side of his head. You don't remember it. What happened? Does that sound like something that would happen, that part of the skull would start to go numb before someone collapses?
Well, it certainly could be. I mean, what James sustained was a severe, catastrophic traumatic brain injury, and had pretty immediate bleeding between the inside of the skull and compressing the brain because the blood has no place to go.
And so that is slowly happening between plays right before you collapse. Yeah. What's the next thing you remember? So you remember the lead up to the game. It's kind of lights out. What's the next thing you remember after the injury?
Ooh. Honestly, for me, I can say.
What are you
That
holding
was
up
last
there?
week.
Hold on, James, hold it to that camera so Anthony and Maggie can get a good shot of what you're holding up.
So, last week I did the Gobbler Grind Marathon.
Okay, all right, the marathon.
No.
You remember things before that.
Yes.
You remember something between the past 10 years.
Yeah.
You were training for a marathon, which we're going to get to that in a minute. That's incredible that you just completed a marathon. Yeah. We're going to get to that in a minute. Dr. Steinle, as far as explaining to non-medical viewers like me and my mom watching and other people watching, how do you explain what a hematoma is?
Well, hematoma is a pretty rapid accumulation of blood because of a blood vessel tearing, and it could either be an artery or a vein, and so the blood has no place to go. Like if it's on your arm, you'd get a bruise, but in a hard shell, your skull, that blood is accumulating and it's compressing the brain, and the brain is the consistency of very firm jello, so it's going to give because of the blood compressing the brain tissue, and so and it can be obviously catastrophic very quickly.
Where did it tear in James? Because Patrick talked about a hard hit that whipped his head to one side.
It was probably one of the main arteries of the brain that tore.
Like down by the base from the turn?
Yeah, more in the back of the brain.
Okay.
And rapidly accumulates.
Wow.
And even though it seems like there was a time span, really it's only 30 seconds probably between plays and before James got up from a play and then got down and then collapsed.
Wow. Patrick, doctors told you your son, James, we're talking about you like you're not here, but doctors said your boy had a less than 7% chance of survival.
Yeah.
One, how do you even process that? And at what point were you told that?
Well, I didn't ask the odds. I knew it was serious because we had studied there's two other young men that collapsed on the football field here in Kansas City that didn't live to tell their story. But so I didn't, all I knew is he was still breathing. And kind of we have a saying within our family is that, you can't change history. There's nothing you can do about the past. So you just focus on what you can do now. And so I kind of went into research mode, like how are we going to recover from this and get through this, but and we won't mourn his death until he takes that last breath, so we're going to continue to celebrate everything he does today. He couldn't do yesterday until that happens. So that when you start to talk about, James has a saying, he goes, we don't believe in fortune tellers, we believe in ourselves and we believe in Christ. And so you don't, the reality is nobody knows what's going to happen, even though that night we had doctors during the stay in ICU say that we were too optimistic and that he probably wouldn't make it through the night. They didn't even put a percentage on it. 11 years later we're interviewing the EMT and he goes, I thought there was no chance of his survival.
It's a miracle.
Yeah,
really.
Definitely a miracle.
Wow. Dr. Steinle, James was in a coma for 5 days. When were you brought into the conversation?
Well, ordinarily, I would have been brought into the conversation when he was in the ICU, but he was in an outside hospital, and so I think they would have brought physiatry in when he is in the ICU. But really, our responsibility as a physical medicine rehabilitation is going to be once they come off the ventilator. But in James' case, I got involved when he was in a day rehabilitation program here in Kansas City, and he had spent 6-7 months in a program in Nebraska. And then James and I actually had a relationship before.
No way.
Yeah, our boys James and my son played basketball in AU from probably 7th grade through sophomore year in high school. So I
AU, it's AU.
AU basketball.
Okay, AU basketball.
Yeah, club basketball. And so, so I knew a little bit of what James' story was. And then when they came back into the community, they were involved with the day rehabilitation program, and I serve as medical director there. And
so did you recognize him right away?
When you saw him.
You're like, James? Dr. Steinley?
We always knew him as Brad. And so
Did you call him Brad? Brad? Oh, that's
you
interesting.
can still call me Brad.
And so we,
wow.
and not until he walked in the room, it's like, Brad, Dr. Steinley, you're Brad.
That must have felt reassuring.
It really
to
was.
see someone you knew.
And such a unique opportunity because, when we would talk about, Jane, like one of the common things we would hear is that, he's reached a plateau, he's got to rest. And it's like, you don't know my son.
And you're not, the audience isn't seeing James when he heard his dad say, you got to rest, he rolls his eyes, like, what's rest?
Yeah, so James is like, he's very competitive, he's very, active, and so, we don't ever take a rest. We're always going. And so it was nice with, Brad knew that, Dr. Steinley knew that because he saw him play ball and he saw him, he was very competitive. And so today he competes more with himself, trying to beat the last time he goes out, but that competitive juices is still there.
That is so cool. And again, we're going to show some video of James running. It's really cool. We did speak with Dr. Alexandra Eriks. She's a physical medicine and rehabilitation doctor who specializes in brain injuries. We asked her to talk about the emotional challenges that can be associated with a traumatic brain injury, and here's what she had to say.
One of the initial challenges for a person or a family member that has a loved one with a traumatic brain injury is that early on there's a lot of uncertainty about recovery. There's a lot of uncertainty about our ability to look forward and see what life might look like for someone after they've had an injury to the brain. And I think along with that uncertainty comes a lot of emotional change, in addition to anything in their life role that has changed, a large flux in life roles that was unexpected. And then even just related to the injury to the brain itself, it can cause some changes and other conditions that can make it hard to cope.
Patrick, you've been very clear. You don't talk in what ifs.
No.
You don't do what ifs. You made a point to keep very positive. Was that hard to do as a dad, or was that in your nature to just going to stay positive about this?
It actually came from early on. James got signed up for 3 basketball teams one day because he was on a team, and then his mom signed him up for one, and I did. And he came off the court. How
old was James at that point?
He was probably 7th or 8th grade, but he was like, so he came off the court crying because they had lost a game, and I was like, James, let me tell you about basketball, about life. I go, once that buzzer sounds, there's nothing you can do to change the score. So don't spend your time worrying about it. Just focus on what you can do today and what's ahead of you. And by the way, you got a game in 30 minutes. We got to get back on.
With your other team.
And so and so when he was on the field and he collapsed, those words are coming back to me. It's like there's nothing you can do about what just happened. Other than we're going to focus on what we're going to do going forward.
Oh, wow.
And the other thing that I think was key is that in ICU, I had heard that when you're recovering from a brain injury, you can still hear, even though you may not react or talk or anything. And so we were very adamant that when the kids came in to visit with them, or when the doctors were giving us information, that if it was bad news, you're going to tell us outside this room, because nothing in this room is I can and I will, and just try to keep that positive environment. And it is hard when you look out and try to predict the future, because it never happened as you project, you know. So the key to this is just focus on today. And then you have plans A through Z for tomorrow, and when you get to tomorrow, you go, okay, which one's most appropriate for where we are today? And you adjust that way. And that's, but I will say this, and James has this mindset of what I call radical acceptance. So one day he asked me, he goes, if you had a wish, Dad, what would it be? And I was like, well, that's easy. I'd wish for your health. And he goes, but Dad, if I had my health, I wouldn't be able to reach all the people I'm able to reach. Yeah. So like he has not only owned it, like he's embraced it, is like we refer to him as James 2.0, the new and improved version.
Wow, that makes me want to cry. How were you always like that, James? Did this did this mindset happen because of your injury, or were you always feeling like this inside?
For me, basically, I was only this way with my closest friends, or friends that I hung out with all the time. But now, everyone is my friend, so if I see you, I'm gonna share my I love you sign with you.
That's awesome. And talk about radical acceptance. You now are, if parlayed this into public speaking as well. And again, get to that in a minute. One more, doing a lot of teasing ahead. I do want to ask Dr. Steinle. James had to relearn everything: walking, talking, eating, using his hands. In what order do you tackle those things?
Well, you tackle all of them at once, but it's very foundational. You know, the first thing was James has got to come off the ventilator, get him breathing strong enough where he can be off the ventilator. And then he had a feeding tube, so we had to work on basic feeding. But things like getting, you know, from laying in bed to the side of the bed, to being successful at that, and then also standing, and then we work on postural and control, and then it's, can he take a step? Can he take another step? And with considerable assistance.
Just like a baby, you're just literally learning how to use your body.
It's exactly like that.
Oh
That's
my
the
gosh.
analogy we use with the kids. It's like laying a baby down, newborn, on a blanket and watching them roll over for the first time. You know, it's like you get excited, but it's a very slow process.
And like a baby, but your mind is still James, the guy who went down on the field. You're still you on the inside. What was the hardest part physically to learn? And then also, how frustrating was that emotionally to not be able to do all these things you'd been doing your whole life?
I'd say physically, and it still is today, probably just my ability to speak more fluently. It's tough. And
does it feel like a struggle to think of the word, or is it just forming the words and making your mouth say them?
More so forming, because I'll have quick comebacks with friends and all.
But it's in slow motion.
Right.
Oh, that's so frustrating. So you can't give a good zinger right in the moment? Because
I know.
Yeah.
So, another just current goal would be mainly running more.
More than a marathon. You want to run more than a marathon.
I may participate in the triathlon.
Holy cow.
I might.
Talk about goals. That's not on most people's goals. Most people don't have that goal. We want to go back to Dr. Eriks, who we heard from ahead of this program, on the brain's ability to heal. It's remarkable. Take a listen.
One of the remarkable things about the brain is that the brain can, heal and recover. Even an uninjured brain, every day we ask our brain to learn new things and to evolve with us. And so we're asking it to do that in a very trying situation, but we know that our brains can learn and we know that our brains can grow. And so I just try to remind them that, you know, it's going to be a day-to-day process. It's going to be a journey. There's going to be time periods where you feel like recovery is happening quickly, and there's going to be other time periods where you feel like it's plateauing. But I really try to stress, you know, that concept of what we call neuroplasticity, which is just this endless capability for the brain to continue to change and grow. So my take home is always a bit of a stick with it take home. You know, it might be slow, it might be hard, but there's value in sticking with your recovery and your recovery plan.
James, these videos of you going through rehab are so cool. When did you decide to grow your hair long? You have great hair. You have great curls.
Thanks. So, I did it mainly after I heard my friend got diagnosed with cancer, and I was like, oh, I'll donate my hair to you. So I grew it out, at that time, just 6 inches, and I had her cut some of my hair, and even some other friends and some random strangers at the barber shop. So, yeah.
Oh, wow. You know, that kind of circles back to what you're saying is you never know what life is going to bring you. You had a friend who got cancer.
Yeah.
And so you're going through it with your friend on a whole different level. Dr. Steinle, how do you help motivate patients who maybe aren't wired like James when they plateau and they get frustrated?
Well, James doesn't completely know about this, but I want to use James as an example to come in and talk to patients that are struggling, worrying about plateauing. Because we've used peers before, because we can talk a good game, but I've never experienced what James has experienced. But sometimes we'll just mix it up. You know, even James has got burned out on some activities, but the amazing thing about James is he gets burned out on one activity and then he does another. And so with James, it's been pretty easy, I think, for his parents to keep him motivated. But I mean, to be honest, you got tired of the traditional therapy, but then you get into a pool and then you work on some activities with it, being on a surfboard, working on balance. And then some of the things that you've done with the running just was
so cool.
Something to take care of the plateau in other areas.
Let's get to the running, because I want to tell our viewers, if you have a question or a comment, we already have some coming in. If you have anything you'd like us to read out loud on the program, send it to us right now on YouTube or Facebook. The links are right there on your screen. Okay, so about the marathon. When James was injured, doctors told his mom and his dad recovery was a marathon, not a sprint. And James, you took that literally. Here you are working with your team at your first attempt at running post-injury.
Yeah.
And now, look at this video where you ran a marathon just a few weeks ago, and this is video of you crossing the finish line. That is so cool. How did you feel after the run?
I simply felt amazing, and just to have so many followers and my own grandmother put my medal over my head.
Could we see her in that video? Did you see her in the video we just played?
Right there at the
okay, can we, I don't know if we have the ability to play it again, but I want to see Grandma.
She's 93 and uses a walker. She has a philosophy, if you don't use it, you lose it. And so she refuses to sit in a wheelchair.
So sweet. We have some side-by-side video of James before and after. Okay, on the left is his first attempt at running. And on the right, there he is, finishing his marathon. Who's holding the cord behind you? Is that a
my
strap?
best friend, TJ Rowe.
He ran the marathon too.
He did the last 6 miles.
Yeah. So your best friend helped you cross the finish line. Dad, such a proud dad moment.
Oh yeah, I was, we joked that early on when I'd hold the gate belt, I said, James, I'm making deposits so that one day you can help me when I get older. And the irony is during that marathon, I hurt my left knee at the 3 mile mark. And so when we got to 20 miles, I put a knee brace on, and you don't see it in any of these videos, but I was someone else was holding the resistance band, and I was hanging on to James's shoulder because he was supporting me.
From James.
I was.
And at one time, I got behind the chair or chariot and go, Pat, you can sit in me. I'm nice and comfortable.
I knew if I sat in that
tempting you.
chariot, I'd never hear the end of it, so I was about to sit in it.
Talk about motivated. James, you also do CrossFit. We have video of you doing CrossFit. You are so determined to get back to your full abilities. So, Dr. Steinle, how do you know as a doctor, when you have a patient like James, is it ever time to say slow down?
Well, I think yes. The short
Okay.
answer is yes. The long answer is that if there are we've had people that have tried to exercise away their disease, and they can run into overuse injury just like people that are neuronormal. And so, and we had. I think there's maybe been some things where James has had some issues with more musculoskeletal stuff, but then that's when we back off. And
Do you feel pain, musculoskeletal pain?
For me, not so much. Now, I still have numbness and tingling within all my fingers and both hands, and same for my feet. So that's the only real
Early on,
issue.
he had experienced neurofatigue, and we had to be careful of that. And ironically, it was more studying and.
What's neurofatigue?
It's just where you're just mentally exhausted, like
Okay.
you can't move on, and so so that was more of a challenge. But because James can't feel some of that pain, that's also a challenge because whenever we do something, I dress exactly like him. So if my feet get cold or I start to get frostbite or whatever, I know he's probably experiencing, even though he doesn't tell me because he can't always feel it until it's too late.
Yeah.
So we just try to be very mindful of that because he doesn't always feel the pain. And we had a story where the first time he went to he was in a pit for the Zac Brown concert. He had a $50 size blister on the bottom of his foot. And I'm poking at it going like, can you feel this? And he's like, no. And I was like, well, I guess we can go. So we went and we stood 3 hours in the pit.
A blister the size of a golf ball?
Yeah. And then afterwards it was still there, but he couldn't feel it. And it was the craziest thing.
Wild.
So fast forward probably 5 years later, he was out playing basketball in the backyard barefoot. He gets another blister and come in and I poke at it, and he goes, ow, that hurt.
Oh,
and I was like, well, this is great news.
Yeah.
He didn't
Pain
like
is
the fact that I
progress.
was poking on it, but it was great
Right.
news because he could feel it. So.
You have such a phenomenal support system with your friends and your family. We also talked to Dr. Eriks about that, and she told us that having that emotional support is so important to physical recovery.
When we talk about recovery and neuroplasticity and brain health, we talk about the consistency of doing those things with everyday life, with everything that you're trying to do. And so it's impossible to only do those interventions when you're in a therapy setting, right? We need those things to then translate to home. We need you to practice those things you're learning in therapy at home. And a lot of times it's going to be hard for patients to practice at home if they don't have support and help from family. And so I think family is the piece that rehabilitates that part, right? They help the patient find the purpose that they need to find the motivation that they need to find to continue to, walk that path and walk that journey forward after brain injury. We can be great cheerleaders and great support team in the medical field, but I always find that it's those families that have helped those patients find that new purpose or re-find an old purpose that helps them really be motivated to continue on their journey of recovery.
Did you throw out the first pitch at a Royals game?
Yes.
When was that? That was so cool.
It was probably 5 years ago. It was John Mayberry was who he threw it to, and he knows him because his son played AAU basketball with us as well.
Another connection?
Or his grandson.
Wild.
It was his grandson, actually. But and so it was kind of cool because the year after his accident, he was asked to throw the first pitch at the Miracle League, and when he threw it, the ball almost hit his foot. And so fast forward, I don't know, it was probably at least 5 years later, and he got invited to throw it at the Royals game, and he threw it right down the middle.
That's incredible. Remember when 50 Cent tried to throw a pitch and he hit his foot? It was bad. You did that was great. That was a great pitch. I want to get to our community questions because we just have a few minutes. We're over time. It's such a good conversation. And we do have a viewer who wants to know about your public speaking because you've parlayed this into public speaking. Who are you talking to when you speak?
For me, I'm trying to reach everyone, so I'm just letting everyone know, hey, we all need love, so we all need to share our love with others. So I always start and end a speech with my I love you
in
signs
sign language.
up.
I love that.
And yeah.
We have did you want to add something to that?
just to add,
So one of the kind of groups he targets, he speaks to a lot of therapy groups, so physical therapists, occupational therapists, and in those speeches, it's very much, if you think your patient's plateaued, think circuit training, like change it up.
So you're educating the physical therapists and nurses and doctors by speaking from your own experience.
Absolutely. And so
cool.
Then he does a lot of faith-based speeches, and he does corporate speeches as well that are motivational with the theme of hope, faith, and love tied to his journey. So
And you are reaching so many people. We have a question from Jared. Well, Jean Reardon says, very inspirational story. Ruth Ellen says, great story. Thank you, James. Beverly writes, this is so inspiring. And Jeremy wants to know, does the rehab have a typical recovery pattern? Can you tell when a plateau is coming? Or is it more like you're doing rehab to encourage neuroplasticity? So Jeremy wants to know more about the rehab and how that works. It's a couple different questions.
Well, I think the neuroplasticity occurs by the repeated activities. And so if a patient's getting burned out, we can switch to a different activity to try to enhance that neuroplasticity as well. But the typical recovery is always atypical. So every patient has their own atypical. And so James is exceptional in his recovery, but he's a good role model because we're 10 years in, and James is learning new activities all the time. And historically, we said people recover, most in the first year, and then it's kind of done, and then we're kind of stuck. And James is a great example James is doing different things in the 8th year, and then in the 9th year, and the 10th year, and who knows what 11th year, the 12th year, and the 20th year. And
you're doing more than most people who haven't had a traumatic brain injury will do. That's wild.
When we were in ICU, we were given a book that said, forget the person you know, they'll be angry, bitter, depressed, and the recovery being the first 8 months. And I threw that book away, by the way. I was like, but you go in and I think he gets bored sometimes of stuff, so you've changed the activity up, but he's always looking for new challenges and adventures to push himself forward. And then once he has a goal set, like he is locked in until he reaches it, and then there's a new goal, and goes from there.
Speaking of new talents and different things that you do, and before we get to our today's takeaways, we have to talk about Parade of Hearts because James, you're gearing up. You're an artist now as well, so you're gearing up for your 3rd year as an artist in the Parade of Hearts. This year's design that you're creating is a surprise. These are some of your past designs. And so for people watching, for a little background here, the Parade of Hearts is so cool. It's a 3-month event featuring 154 giant hearts that you see all over the community, decorated by local artists and groups. These hearts are chosen by a panel out of 700 submissions, and you're one of the artists. Were you an artist before your injury?
Not at all. I mean,
It's incredible.
give me a piece of paper and pencil. All I would do is a stick figure and say, it's beautiful. That was it right there.
Yeah, there's he was watching a local artist do a life painting, John Bucati, and John took a liking to James and sent him a supply of paint, and actually spent a day just kind of working with different things, because James has ataxia in the right hand. Like, how can you paint, with the the challenge of ataxia? And so he kind of worked it out, and from then on, James just started painting. And so he paints. He was right-handed, now he paints left-handed.
Oh, wow.
So he just switched hands. And
So, quick, ataxia is when, what is ataxia? How would you explain it to someone?
Like me trying to grab
Got
the
it.
water, you see how my right hand is shaking?
Yeah.
That's
I remember when you shook my
more-
hand, you used your other hand to stabilize it when you came in for the shake. So,
Now, left hand is
no problem.
so now you're left-handed.
yes.
So interesting. Well, this is such a delightful conversation out of something that was so horrible that happened to you. You're absolutely delightful to speak with, and you're so positive. This is just such a moving conversation. For today's takeaways, Patrick, I want to start with you. What do you want our viewers to know about traumatic brain injuries?
If you ever find yourself in that position, just take one day at a time. If you look way out, it's overwhelming. But if you just focus on what you can do today, try to do something new that you couldn't do yesterday, with time, you'll begin to achieve your goals. And it's not a matter of if you'll achieve it, it's just a matter of when. And so, James is achieving things 11 years later that, even a year ago, I'm not certain we thought was possible.
Wow.
And so just never give up and keep fighting forward if you find yourself in that situation. And the only other thing I'd say is no two brain injuries are alike. So get yourself a network of people that have been through this and share ideas, because what works for you, one person today might not work for you today, but it might later. And so just sharing those ideas kind of gives you ideas to try new things, and if something was working, keep doing it. If it's not, shelve it, come back to it later.
James, what do you want people watching to take away from this conversation the most?
Yeah, for myself, I just want this world to know you are loved, no matter what your disability or ability is. I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
I love that. That's a great threat. I love it. So threatens celebrity. Dr. Steinle, what do you want people watching to know?
Well, I think as a clinician, especially, being humble and understanding that we don't know everything. I've practiced medicine for 25 years, and while we know a lot more about brain and neuroplasticity, there's a lot of things that we don't know. And providing hope for patients and family, I think, is important, because if things are not going to go well, they're not going to go well. But I think we do a disservice sometimes when we're so pessimistic, and we can get colored by that, by things that have not gone well. But providing hope for patients is probably the most important thing that we can do.
Dr. Steinle, thank you. Patrick, thank you. And James, thank you so much for coming on this program. So great to meet you. And to our viewers, thank you for joining the conversation. We'll see you right back here tomorrow morning on Open Mics with Dr. Stites. Dr. Stites, you've heard the keto diet is good for weight loss, but what if its real power lies in your brain? The science behind the keto diet that might surprise you tomorrow at 8 a.m.